What do avoidant people actually do when they love you? And welcome to Black Flag. Some connections don't end in a way you can clearly point to. They don't break, they don't collapse, they don't even give you a moment you can hold on to and say, this is where it changed. They just stop holding the same way they did before. And that difference is subtle enough that you feel it long before you can explain it. At the beginning, nothing feels complicated. You don't think about timing, or whether you're saying the right thing, or how often you should show up. Conversations move on their own. There's a rhythm to it, and even the silence between messages feels like part of that rhythm, instead of something you need to fill. And that's exactly why the shift is difficult to catch, because it doesn't arrive as a clear change. It shows up as a difference in how things feel over time. The messages are still there, but they don't come the same way. The conversations still happen, but they don't carry themselves as far. And at some point, you realize you're the one waiting more than before, even though nothing was ever said out loud. And once you notice that, it's hard to unsee. Not because something ended, but because something stopped moving. The issue starts here. When someone has an avoidant pattern, closeness doesn't just mean connection. It also means exposure, and not the kind that feels exciting or new, but the kind that makes you aware of how much control you might lose if you let something get too close to you. So instead of moving toward that feeling, they adjust it. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that makes a clean break. They just step back enough to regulate it. And from the outside, that adjustment doesn't look very different from someone losing interest. That's where most people get pulled into the wrong interpretation. Because both situations, someone feeling too much and someone not feeling enough, can create the same pattern on the surface. The same reduction in effort, the same increase in distance, the same quiet shift in how present they are. And if you're already invested, your mind will naturally reach for the explanation that allows the connection to still make sense. They're overwhelmed. They're scared. They just need space. And sometimes that's exactly what's happening. But not always. The problem is that time can serve two completely different purposes depending on what's underneath. For some people, time creates room for them to come back, to process, to move at a pace that feels manageable, even if that pace doesn't match yours. For others, time isn't a bridge, it's distance. And the longer you stay in that in-between space, the more those two possibilities start to blur into each other in a way that's hard to separate emotionally, even if it becomes clear behaviorally. So the only thing that really matters is not what happens once, it's what repeats. Because a single moment can be explained in 100 different ways, but a pattern eventually explains itself without needing interpretation. If someone pulls back but continues to return, to re-engage, to maintain some form of presence over time, even if it's inconsistent, even if it's not ideal, there is still something being sustained. Not perfectly, but intentionally enough that it exists. If someone pulls back and continues to reduce their presence over time, even if they reappear occasionally, but with less depth, less effort, and less continuity each time, then what you're looking at isn't hesitation. It's direction. And direction doesn't need to be announced to be real. There's a moment in this kind of dynamic that almost always gets misread. It's the point where things begin to deepen, where the connection moves out of surface-level interaction and starts to carry weight. And right there, that's often where the withdrawal happens. It's very easy to interpret that moment as meaning something significant is happening underneath, something emotional, something unresolved but real. And sometimes that's true. But sometimes that moment isn't a signal of depth. It's a signal of limit. Not a stage they need to get through, just a place they don't go beyond.
And if you misread that moment, you don't just misunderstand them. You start adjusting yourself.
You become more patient, more accommodating, more willing to wait without asking too many questions. And at first, that feels like awareness, like you're handling something complex with maturity instead of reacting to it. But over time, it shifts into something else. You're no longer just understanding them, you're reorganizing yourself around what they're not giving. Understanding someone can give you clarity, but it can also give you reasons to stay in something that isn't actually moving. And those two things can feel almost identical when you're inside it. There are always two things happening in parallel in this kind of situation. One is that someone moves slowly, unevenly, but still chooses to stay connected in a way that continues over time. The other is that someone is already stepping away, just without a clear ending. And the difference between those two doesn't show up in what they say. It shows up in how they show up. At some point, the question changes. It's not about what they feel anymore, it's about what they consistently do. Because feelings can exist without direction, but patterns don't. Patterns always point somewhere. And if you stay long enough and pay attention without trying to force an explanation too early, that direction becomes visible on its own. Not in one moment, but across many. That's where your decision actually begins, not based on what you hope is there, but based on what is actually repeating in front of you. Thanks for being here. If you've been in something like this, you probably didn't need someone to explain it to you. You just needed to hear it without it being softened or simplified into something easier to accept. And if this made something clearer, even slightly, then that's enough. If you want more of this, not polished, not reduced, just seen as it is, follow Black Flag. Until next time, remember this: a connection isn't defined by what someone feels in a moment. It's defined by what they continue to do over time.